My name is Malcolm Roach, an executive advisor and CPA with over 30 years of helping mid-sized businesses select new management software. So today we're going to review how a modern cloud-based solution from Microsoft will help companies in the trenching, shoring, and boring businesses to utilize one system to meet their requirements for finance, rentals, and service. One constant these days is the rapid change in technology. No matter what business you're in, technology, whether you're talking about the actual equipment that you're selling or renting, or the parts that you sell, or whether it's the systems that you use, is changing rapidly. And so really, it's an old adage that the only constant is change. And so you need this in order to keep up with what's going on, to compete with your competitors, especially if you're in the equipment rental business and you're competing against companies like Herc and United Rentals and Sunbelt, who are constantly buying up your competitors. And so those larger companies have some more sophisticated systems and frankly, bigger budgets as far as new software. So what do? Right? So we're going to look at an opportunity to use a system that gives you the functionality of those large systems for hopefully a fraction of the cost. Okay, so companies that are renting trenching, shoring, and boring equipment have very different requirements for equipment. So some of the equipment is larger, discrete units. They may be set up individually in fixed assets. So I can think about, for example, a large boring machine. It's going to be set up in fixed assets. It's going to have service requirements. It may have planned maintenance requirements. So every 500 hours you do this. Once a year you get a recertification done, or you do an inspection on it, or maybe you change out some bearings, or whatever it happens to be. These larger units often, as I said, are set up in fixed assets and will have sophisticated service requirements, including both repairs and planned maintenance. And then you have equipment, this is especially applicable on things like the shoring equipment, where you may have large plates of steel. Well, I mean, you can put unique IDs on a plate of steel, but most companies don't. And it's entirely up to you. But the system that you're looking for needs to be able to handle both those discrete units we talked about a moment ago, that you might find more in trenching and more in boring, or you need to find these bulk items that, regardless of how expensive they are, they're just basically handled in quantity. I need 6 sheets that are a certain size, certain material, certain thickness, and I need those delivered to this location. They are not set up individually in fixed assets typically, and they don't typically have separate repair requirements, and certainly no planned maintenance. So a plate of steel, if it gets bent, you're going to bring it in and try and straighten it, but that's not the same as changing the oil or fixing something that's broken specifically. So the system needs to be able to handle all of those. And then you may also rent tools or small items that are either for sale or for rent. So you need a strong inventory management system that can work across multiple locations and organize your warehouse. So it's critical for an equipment rental business to have the right equipment at the right time and the right amounts of those equipment. And often in this business, it's seasonal. So depending where you are, you're not going to be doing as much trenching and shoring in Minneapolis as maybe you would be able to down in a place like Houston or Dallas or somewhere like that, where the ground is typically not frozen and you're not dealing with the major winter seasons. In some cases, it's more rainy seasons you have to worry about. But either way, you need to have the right amounts of the right kind of equipment in your rental fleet, or be able to source it as you need it. So some companies, what they'll do is, instead of actually keeping if you look at it, say, I'm just using examples here, but let's say that you need 100 units of a certain type, but maybe your typical demand is only 80, or maybe it's only 60. Well, why should you stock 100 for that high points? Why don't you go out and source some that you can you can rent from your competitors or perhaps other providers somewhere, and do that through what is called subrent or re-rent, and then use that. And especially if it's equipment that requires service, you no longer have to invest the money to buy it, but you also don't have to service it. So requirements for repairs and planned maintenance for those units will generally go away. So anyway, it's important to have that information. So One of the things that you run into is with the changes in customer projects and the changes in technology, you have to keep on top of this. It's not necessarily monthly, but every year at a minimum, you need to look at the different groups of your equipment and the demand from your customers. Is it going up? Is it going down? Talk to your salespeople, see what kind of projects they think the customers are coming up with. Do you have the right amount of equipment? So the solution we're going to talk about briefly today is called Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. Microsoft does a lot. I love those long names, but the thing to remember is it's called Business Central. And with its immediate predecessor, which is called Dynamics Nav, it is the most popular mid-market accounting and business software system in the world. It has over 200,000 in total, over 200,000 customers. And so it's found in over 100 companies, and it's well known for its flexibility, its performance, and its ease of use. And so in combination with some industry apps that you can get from suppliers like ourselves, so then now you can add unique functionalities for rentals, for certain equipment service, and if you're in the right business, field service. You can now take that thing and it becomes a fully functional system offering a very strong and flexible financial system, a great inventory system. It has manufacturing if your company's into manufacturing, fixed assets, projects. It has all of that, plus it's fully integrated to rentals and service. So now you can sit there in a service quote, a rental quote or a rental contract and say, okay, what's the availability of my equipment at certain lines, look it up. Set up a new customer right on the fly if you need to. Have that a customer approved by accounting if that's a process that you want to use. And you can just immediately create reservations and then pick your equipment later. You don't have to pick the units right now. You can pick them later, but you know what your demand is. Am I going to be short this? Am I going to be able to promise this to the customer? Am I going to be able to reserve it for the customer? And the reservations, for example, should take into account the service status. So with Business Central and these apps that I referred to, you have a cloud solution from Microsoft. It connects to a data center in your location. In certain cases, if you need to actually run the software in-house for some reason, it will run that way as well. You just won't get the automatic updates. You'll have to update it whenever you're ready to update it, but the updates would be available to you from Microsoft. And if you have the cloud solution, though, it automatically updates twice per year. The apps from the partner like ourselves, like the rentals and the service, will automatically flow along with the Business Central. If you've done customizations, they also move forward. And in the small chance that you have of a Microsoft changing something that will affect one of your customizations, we actually sell a relatively low-cost service that will guarantee that we'll look at your customizations if you have any, because many customers don't, but it will look at your customizations ahead of time, and we will make sure that they will work with that upgrade before Microsoft processes it, so then they will flow forward as well. So if you've been around anywhere near as long as I have, or you've been through any system upgrades, you will appreciate my next statement, and that is with the cloud solution, you no longer have any upgrades. You're not changing systems. You are doing incremental changes that may or may not even be noticeable depending on the level of them every 6 months. And so the system just keeps up to date. It gets all the new technology from Microsoft, everything you've done, all your data, all your customizations, all your unique setup, your pricing, everything just automatically flows through those twice a year updates. And if there's something that's new enough that you need training, you figure that out ahead of time, and then you train your users on it. And if there's something that actually requires, maybe it's a new function from Microsoft. And so then you just say, okay, well, let's figure out when we want to implement that. And then you just arrange to have it implemented. So it's just a really different paradigm now in terms of how you interact with these systems. You implement it once, train your users once, and then you just have incremental changes on the updates, twice a year updates. From then on, you never do another system upgrade. So that in combination with some industry leading technology and functionality for the equipment rental business is really a high value package in my opinion. So some of the things that you get with this rental system, for example, is you can do rental packages. Sometimes you want to package equipment together and rent it out at one price. You can charge for equipment usage. You can also add service costs onto the cost of inventory. If you're adding, for example, accessories onto a new serialized unit, you can add those service costs onto that unit, or you can add service costs, major service costs, onto a unit that's had, for example, a motor pulled out. So maybe you've got a larger boring unit and you've just spent $60,000 on a motor job. Well, you can take that $60,000 and write that back into fixed assets to be depreciated now, instead of just being written off to maintenance. You can do chargebacks. Equipment comes back from a customer, it's damaged. You can just, on the service ticket, say, I'm charging this back to the customer. Bang, goes back onto a rental contract to be billed to the customer. You can integrate projects with rentals. Okay, so sometimes you want rentals billed on a project. Sometimes you want project information brought back to rentals to be billed on a rental contract. You can do things like that. You can have mobility solutions, so you can run on a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop. You can, if you want to, there's actually an option for running in offline mode, which means that if you're not connected to the internet, you can actually create an app using Power Apps, which is Microsoft Power Apps, that you can run offline and then synchronize with your system later on. So that's the end of our summary for today. So thank you very much for your time. There's further information on how to contact our company if you're interested in finding out more about either Business Central or our equipment rental or equipment service apps. Thank you very much.